Hi everyone, it's Danny. Alrighty, so one of my viewers suggested that I make a video about how to care for orchid seedlings. So I don't have many seedlings because I don't have the patience to wait for them, but I do have quite a few. So I'll tell you what I observed and what I know about growing orchid seedlings. Now, what are seedlings? They are actually very young orchids. They can come from seeds, as the name suggests, or other methods of propagation, like tissue culture. But the bottom line is they're very young and very tiny compared to the mature version. Because they're very tiny, it's easy to assume they will not have as big leaves and as big root system or pseudobulbs like a mature version of the plant. For this reason, I think the major thing with seedlings is to keep them hydrated. They usually don't have as many storage devices like the mature version. So Phalaenopsis seedlings will not have as big of a root system as a mature Phalaenopsis, and also pseudobulb orchid seedlings like Cattleyas, Dendrobiums, and Oncidiums will not have as many pseudobulbs nor as big pseudobulbs as their mature versions. So for this reason, I actually keep an eye on my orchid seedlings, and I don't let them go very bone dry for long periods of time. Also, I usually use a more water-retentive media, like a mixture between bark chips and sphagnum moss, even for Cattleya seedlings. I also use smaller grade fir bark or pine bark, as you can see here. All of this is used to maintain humidity for a longer period of time, just so I avoid the instance of actually dehydrating these seedlings. Another thing to consider is light. Of course, it really depends on the type of orchid you're growing and its necessities. But for the main part, with orchid seedlings, I do not provide direct sunshine. This is because if somehow one of their leaves gets burned, they might not have too many leaves, so the photosynthesis process might be hardened. I like to play it safe, so I do provide bright light, but I do not give direct sunshine quite at all for orchid seedlings. Another very important aspect is ventilation. Again, consider that a seedling might not have enough pseudobulbs as a mature orchid. So if something happens to the older, tinier pseudobulbs, the orchid will not have enough pseudobulb to sustain a fast and rapid growth. So for this reason, I like to provide a lot of ventilation. I like to keep them quite drafty. If you cannot provide a draft, you can also use a fan, but I do like to keep them very ventilated. I do not want to provoke any rotting or any molds on the surface of the media, because this orchid is pretty prone to not pulling through simply because it does not have enough energy stored. Regarding fertilizer, well, I only use high nitrogen fertilizer for these babies, simply because I want them to grow foliage and roots as much as possible. They will not bloom at this stage, they're too tiny, so I'm not really interested in providing any bloom boosters of any sorts. All I want them to do at this point is grow roots and new leaves and actually mature as fast as they can. When they will become mature, I will think about the bloom boosters, but at this point it's really not necessary. Regarding temperature, for orchid seedlings, it's better to go on the warmer side. Of course, it depends on the specific type or variety you're growing, but for the main part, I do not go to extremes. I don't let them have too much heat either. I try to keep them rather intermediate. So let's say between 22 degrees Celsius to 24-25 degrees Celsius is almost perfect for any type of seedling you are growing, except the cases of those orchids which prefer cooler or hotter environments. The idea is that I don't want to stall their growth. In lower temperatures, their metabolism will be slower as well, and in too hot temperatures, they can actually dehydrate. So keeping everything balanced at an intermediate level will keep them balanced as well, and will keep their growth balanced. And just like any other baby, they are more susceptible to certain things than mature orchids. Their immune system might not be developed yet, so they cannot fight pests and other molds and stuff like that they can get attacked by. So you need to be careful that you keep an eye on them and treat them a little bit like babies, because in the end, they are babies. And the last idea, just be patient. It can take quite a few years for an orchid seedling to become mature and bloom. So when dealing with orchid seedlings, you need to have patience and you need to have the time to devote to them and see if they're okay. But for this, you will actually get rewarded. Depending on the state of your orchid and depending on how developed it is, after 2 or 3 years, you will get rewarded with a beautiful bloom spike or flower depending on your variety, and all the effort will be worth it. Okay, so I hope you found this video useful. If you are a beginner with orchids, I suggest you stay away from orchid seedlings, even though they're cheaper on eBay. First, get adjusted to mature orchids, see how they work, and learn how to care for them, and then you can actually try to grow seedlings and get the rewards of actually caring for them for a few years and afterwards getting a bloom. So if you'd like to see more videos from me, just subscribe to my channel because I post daily. If you have further questions or suggestions for videos, just leave me a comment down below and I'll get back to you. And also visit orchidnature.com, which is my website, for identification sheets, care sheets, and forums. So I will see you next time. Bye!